Have you ever wondered why your energy suddenly drops after you tell someone your plans? Why the fire inside you dims just a little the moment you speak your goals out loud? It's strange, isn't it? You start your day with so much passion. You feel focused, driven, certain, then you share what you're working on, and slowly that excitement fades. Doubt creeps in, motivation starts slipping through your fingers. You can't explain it, but you feel it deep inside. There's something no one ever taught us growing up. Something powerful, something dangerous. Not every thought is meant to be spoken. Not every dream is meant to be shared. Most people walk through life with their hearts wide open and their minds unguarded. They talk, they explain, they reveal, and then they wonder why nothing feels right anymore, why progress becomes harder, why their spirit feels drained. Maybe it's not because they're doing the wrong things. Maybe it's because they're telling the wrong people. The truth is, every time you tell someone what you're working on, what you're building, or what you're planning to become, you open a door, not just to their curiosity, but to their opinions, their doubts, their hidden envy. And most of the time, people don't respond with support. They respond with silence, with subtle judgment, with a raised eyebrow or a comment that seems small, but lingers in your mind for days. You were once full of fire, but now you're stuck replaying their words, asking yourself if maybe they're right. That's how fast someone else's voice can poison your progress. But here's the thing most people miss. The desire to talk is natural. We're human. We crave connection. We want validation. We want someone to say, that's a great idea, you can do it. But human psychology is tricky. When we share our goals too soon, the brain feels a false sense of accomplishment. It releases dopamine, the chemical of reward, before anything has actually been done. We feel satisfied just by speaking, not by achieving, and that's where most people lose. They speak their energy into the world before it's strong enough to survive. There's a hidden power in silence, a strength that most people will never know simply because they've never tasted it. But if you can learn to hold your tongue, if you can learn to protect your dreams instead of exposing them, you will become unstoppable. Your motivation will rise, your belief will grow, and the pressure to explain yourself will disappear. Keep watching this video till the very end, and you'll discover the exact reason why your silence is the most powerful tool you have, and how using it wisely can turn you into the kind of person who doesn't need to announce anything because their results will speak for them. This isn't just motivation. This is psychology. And once you understand it, your entire path will change. Let's go deeper. But why does this happen? Why does simply talking about your dreams steal their strength? It's not just about people. It's about the way the mind works. Deep inside the brain, there's a system wired for survival. It wants to protect you from failure, embarrassment, and risk. So the moment you speak about a goal, before you even take one step toward it, your brain starts analyzing. It looks for danger. It remembers past mistakes. It magnifies the possibility of judgment. And it does all of this to convince you to stay safe, to stay small, to stay the same. When you speak your ambitions, your mind starts thinking you've already done something. That fake sense of progress tricks you. Dopamine floods in. You feel a rush, a moment of pride. But then, without real action, the feeling fades. You've used your fuel before the engine even started. You didn't build momentum. You released it. That's why so many people feel exhausted by the time they're ready to work. They talk too much. They thought too far. They gave themselves the reward without earning it. That's how motivation dies. There's also another hidden trap. When you share your dreams, you invite opinion. And opinions are dangerous because not all of them come from love. Sometimes it's jealousy. Sometimes it's fear. Most people live trapped in their own limits, so when you show signs of rising, they react. Not always with words. Often it's just a look, a pause, a little laugh. And suddenly that seed of self-doubt is planted in your mind. You start questioning what was once clear. You start shrinking something that once felt powerful. And the worst part, you blame yourself. But it was never just you. It was the noise. Silence, on the other hand, is a sanctuary. It gives your dreams space to breathe. It protects your energy from being scattered. It gives you time to build strength before the world sees you. That's how true growth happens, quietly, privately, like roots growing beneath the surface. You don't see anything yet, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. In fact, the most important growth is always invisible at first. When you keep your goals to yourself, you stay focused. You don't waste energy defending your vision to people who'll never understand it. You don't lose time explaining your next step to someone who's never taken one. You just move, quiet, steady, relentless. And while others are busy talking, you're building. You're gaining ground. You're sharpening your mind. And soon the silence you carried will echo louder than any words ever could. Psychologists call this mental reinforcement through solitude. When you protect your dream from external voices, you build inner strength. You train your mind to rely on itself, not on applause, not on agreement, not on validation. That's how winners are built, in rooms where no one sees them, in mornings when no one claps for them, in moments when no one believes in them, but they still move forward. This is not just about staying quiet. This is about building something powerful enough to survive without praise. And that kind of power, it doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask for approval. It simply rises. When you work in silence, something powerful starts to happen inside you. You begin to shift from needing to prove to simply needing to grow. The world quiets down. The pressure disappears. And for the first time, you're no longer chasing applause. You're chasing progress. You start feeling more connected to your purpose, not because people are clapping for you, but because you see yourself changing. You start measuring your days, not by what others think, but by how far you've come from who you used to be. There's a strength that only grows in privacy, a fire that only burns when no one's watching. When you take action without announcing it, without seeking recognition, you start training your brain to do the work for the sake of the work. You stop needing validation. You start creating self-respect. And self-respect is the root of unstoppable motivation. It's built through private discipline, through quiet sacrifice, through every moment you could have shown off but didn't, because deep down you knew the real reward wasn't in being seen. It was in becoming someone strong enough to not care. When no one's watching, there's no one to impress. And that's when you become the most honest version of yourself. No performance, no mask, just pure effort. That's where character is formed. And character is what separates those who dream from those who do. In silence, you make real promises to yourself. You don't just say, I'll do it. You do it again and again, without recognition, without a pat on the back, without needing the world to notice. There's a deep psychological truth. People who rely on external motivation crash when it disappears, but people who learn to build internal drive, those who move without being pushed, never stop. They might get tired, they might feel doubt, but they never stop because they've learned to operate from a place that's far more powerful than praise. They move with purpose, and purpose doesn't fade just because no one's clapping. Think about how much energy you've wasted just explaining yourself, justifying your choices, telling people what you're building, and then waiting, hoping for their approval. Now imagine what happens when all that energy goes into the work itself, into growing, improving, refining, creating. That's the shift. That's when things start to change. When you realize that your progress doesn't need an audience, it just needs your focus. Quiet work builds loud results, not instantly, but inevitably. And when the world finally sees you, they won't just see what you've built, they'll see who you became. And they'll wonder how it happened so fast. But it didn't happen fast, it happened silently. While they were talking, you were grinding. While they were watching others, you were watching yourself. While they were explaining, you were evolving. That's how legacies are built, not through announcements, through action, not through declarations, through discipline, not through noise, through silence so deep it echoes louder than applause ever could. Not everyone around you wants to see you win. That's a hard truth, but it's one that frees you when you finally accept it. Some people in your life don't cheer for your growth because it reminds them of their own stillness. Your movement exposes their comfort. Your ambition threatens their excuses. And without even realizing it, they start projecting their fears onto your path. Not because they hate you, but because your rise makes them confront the parts of themselves they've been avoiding for years. This is why silence is so powerful, because when you speak too early, you invite that quiet resistance. Not loud, not obvious, but subtle. A quick, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" A small, "That's really hard, you know." These words feel harmless in the moment, but they sink deep. They plant questions in your mind. And the problem with those questions is that they don't just challenge your plan, they start chipping away at your belief. That belief is everything. It's what holds your dream together in the dark. And when you let others poke holes in it before it's strong enough, you risk watching it fall apart before it even begins. You're not fragile, but your vision is, especially in the early stages. And the more you protect it, the more it can grow into something unshakable. You don't owe anyone an explanation, not your friends, not your coworkers, not even your family. Your dreams are not up for debate. And the moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you start becoming powerful. You don't need permission to change your life. You don't need a round of applause to take the first step. All you need is to be honest with yourself about what you want, and then have the courage to chase it quietly. There's a common human tendency called social mirroring. It's when we unconsciously seek reactions from others to validate our choices. But when we rely on that too much, we lose the ability to move on our own. We hesitate. We wait for signs, for agreement, for support. And all of that waiting steals time, steals energy, steals life. That's why the most dangerous thing isn't failure, it's delay. And most delays happen not because of a lack of skill, but because of too much talking. You grow stronger when you stop sharing every detail. You create momentum when you stop checking in with others and start checking in with yourself. Every day, ask yourself not what they think, but what you did, what you built, how much closer you are to who you said you'd become. That's the real scoreboard. And the truth is, most people who reach the top didn't do it by being loud. They did it by being consistent, focused, disciplined, quiet. You'll always have a choice. Speak too soon and weaken your energy, or stay silent and strengthen your power. It's not easy to keep your mouth shut when you're excited. But excitement fades. Discipline doesn't. And when you finally reach that place you've been working toward, when your results speak for themselves, you'll realize it was never about being seen. It was about becoming unshakable. The most important belief you'll ever build is the belief in yourself. And that belief grows strongest in silence. Because when you stop asking for others to believe in you, you start proving it to yourself. Every step you take in private becomes a message to your own mind. I'm serious. I'm doing this. With or without anyone's approval. That's where unshakable confidence begins. Not in words, not in announcements, but in quiet execution. People often confuse silence with weakness. But silence isn't a lack of power. It's proof that you've found something deeper than noise. When you stop needing to be understood, you start to understand yourself. And what you find is that your vision doesn't need to be explained. It just needs to be lived. The less you speak about what you're doing, the more time you have to actually do it. And that changes everything. Self-belief is a psychological muscle. It doesn't grow from compliments. It doesn't grow from being seen. It grows every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it. Every time you show up on the days when no one is watching. Every time you keep going, even when there's no spotlight, no applause, no audience. That's the kind of belief that can't be broken. Because it was never built on anyone else. And here's the truth. Most people don't get what they want because they're too focused on how it looks. They want the image. They want to be admired. But admiration is a distraction. You don't need to be admired. You need to be disciplined. You don't need to be seen. You need to be sharp. You don't need to be talked about. You need to be trusted by yourself. That only comes when you do the work in silence and let the results do the speaking later. You're not here to convince people. You're not here to collect approval. You're here to build something real, something that can't be taken from you. And that kind of success comes from working in the dark, from learning to enjoy the quiet, from being at peace with not being noticed, not being praised, not being asked how it's going, because you know exactly where you're going. And that's enough. There's power in restraint. When you choose not to post every move, not to share every plan, not to tell the world every time you're starting something new, you become dangerous. Because no one can stop what they don't see. No one can attack what you keep sacred. And when you finally emerge, it won't be a surprise. It'll be undeniable. Because the truth is, real growth doesn't need an announcement. Real change doesn't come with a warning. It just arrives quietly, strongly, completely. Your peace is worth more than their opinion. Your dream is worth more than their doubt. And your belief is worth more than their permission. You owe no one an explanation for the fire inside you. Let it burn, let it build, let it guide you through every quiet morning and lonely night, because the world will hear you when the time is right. But until then, protect what you're building, guard it with silence, and trust that one day it will speak so loud you won't have to. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is focus. It is discipline. It is control. And in a world that never stops talking, your silence becomes your power. While others are rushing to be seen, to be liked, to be validated, you're choosing something stronger. You're choosing to build in peace, to grow in the dark, to prepare for the moment when your results become louder than any words you could have said. One day, the world will notice. They'll see the change in. They'll hear your name in rooms you never entered. They'll ask when it happened, how you did it, why they didn't see it coming, but you'll know. You'll know that while they were watching each other, you were watching your path. You weren't busy posting, proving, or performing. You were working quietly, consistently. And now, your silence has turned into strength. There's something deeply powerful about knowing you don't owe anyone an update, that you don't have to prove yourself to people who weren't built to understand your mission. You no longer seek recognition because you're too busy becoming undeniable. The peace that comes from that mindset is priceless. You stop racing, you stop comparing, you stop waiting for permission, and you start owning every step of your journey, even the setbacks, even the slow days, even the moments when you feel invisible. Because deep down, you know invisibility is not the enemy, it's the training ground. The pressure that turns coal into diamonds is silence. It's isolation. It's the work no one claps for. That's where greatness is built, not in noise, not in display, but in the decision to keep going when no one else knows you are. The truth is, results don't lie, and when they finally come, they'll speak for you. They'll silence the doubters. They'll humble the critics. They'll inspire the quiet observers who always watched you from the shadows. And most importantly, they'll remind you that staying silent was never weakness. It was wisdom. Because when you no longer need to talk about what you're building, you know you've already become the kind of person who finishes what they start. You're no longer chasing motivation. You've built discipline. You're no longer seeking approval. You've built confidence. And you're no longer looking around. You're looking ahead, focused, calm, relentless. Let your actions whisper until your success screams. Let your growth stay hidden until it's impossible to ignore. Let your journey be sacred. Let your silence be your weapon. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice that wins. It's the most consistent hand, the most focused mind, the most disciplined soul. You don't have to tell the world what you're doing. You just have to do it. And when you do, the world won't need an explanation. They'll see the results. They'll hear the silence. And they'll understand everything without you saying a word.